All right, good morning. My name is Chasen Ishii, Chairperson of the Authority. I'd like to now call to order the March 6, 2024 Kalaeloa Authority meeting of the Hawaii Community Development Authority. And the time is now 11 o'clock.
Thank you, Chair. In accordance with section 92-3.7 Hawaii Revised Statutes, the Hawaii Community Development Authority is holding today's Kalaeloa Board meeting virtually on Zoom. The Zoom link details were included on the meeting agenda. Therefore, members of the public are welcome to join us on Zoom and also at our physical meeting site at the American Brewery Building, 547 Queen Street, second floor, boardroom, Honolulu, Hawaii, 96813. The HCDA communications staff is hosting this meeting. Once this meeting begins, everyone will be muted for clearer audio. Board members, if you have any comments or questions, please unmute yourselves to speak. It is important that all individuals clearly state their name each time prior to speaking. This is a public, in-person, or virtual meeting, so to prevent any distractions, if you are attending virtually and you're not a board member, staff member, or HCD's Attorney General, please turn off your video during the meeting. If you wish to provide oral testimony and you're attending virtually, please indicate so by clicking the raise hand button found on your Zoom screen. If you are attending in person, you will be called to the front of the room in the order that you signed up. All testimony will be limited to 3 minutes, a maximum of 3 minutes. Your testimony must be related to an item on the agenda. Before you begin your testimony, we ask that you identify yourself, spell your name for the record. When 1 minute is remaining, 1 minute remains will be called out. When 30 seconds is remaining, 30 seconds remain will be called out. When time has elapsed, I will call time. At that point, you will have 30 seconds to kind of wrap up your testimony. And we ask that you keep to that time schedule. Once the 30 seconds is 3 minutes and 30 seconds is achieved, if you are your audio will be turned off if you are on Zoom. If you are attending in person, the presiding officer will call the next testifier. So thank you for respecting those rules. Keep in mind that this is an opportunity to share your thoughts with us. If you ask questions during your testimony, neither the board nor the staff is required to provide an answer. If the authority's connection for the remote meeting is lost, the meeting will be recessed until the connection is restored. If the connection cannot be restored within 30 minutes, the meeting will be terminated and the authority will continue the meeting at another notice date. Thank you.
ACDA board members, please remain visible and audible during the meeting. Also, please acknowledge you are present by either saying here or present. Let the record reflect the following members are present. Vice Chair Higa.
Present.
Secretary Apo.
Present.
Member Sniffet.
Chair.
Yep.
Sorry, Chair, Director is not able to join, so I'll be representing him for DOT.
Okay, thank you. Let the record reflect, Member Miranda Johnson will be attending.
Thank you.
Anderson.
Here.
Member Strites.
Present.
Member Alice Evans.
Here.
Member Ray. Excuse. For today's meeting, board members will have an opportunity to ask questions or provide comments after an agenda item has been presented. Do we have quorum?
We have quorum. Sorry.
Individuals from the public who have requested to provide verbal public testimony on a specific agenda item are on standby and will be permitted to provide their testimony respectively. Item number 1 on the agenda, approval of minutes, the regular meeting minutes of December 6, 2023. Board members, are there any comments or corrections to these minutes? If not, the meetings are approved as presented. Item number 2, decision making. Consider authorizing the executive director to extend or not to extend the exclusive negotiations agreement and the right of entry agreement dated March 15, 2021 with HK Management LLC for an additional 3-month period regarding the Honokia Surf Villages project. proposed to be located on approximately 19.4 acre parcel located in the Kalaeloa Community Development District at tax map key number 19-1-013-068. No postal address. On account of the inability of the Hawaii Community Development Authority and HK Management LLC and its principals to agree on the essential terms of a ground lease. Mr. Garrett Sasaki, Chief Financial Officer and Executive Director Nakamoto, will present the staff report.
Thank you, Chair. I'll kind of introduce it, and we have also joining Garrett is Lindsay Lieberman-Doy. She's the asset manager, and she has been involved with the negotiations as well on the ground lease. So she's both sitting at the table.
Thank you.
Our staff report is included in your packet as tab 2, but let me kind of talk about the following key points before I kind of start on the staff report. I wanted to first acknowledge some 152 testimonies that we have received to date. A lot of them, and maybe most of them, are in support of the project. We recognize that, these testimonies recognize that the project is, in their views, a good project. And so all the board members have received all of the testimonies. So thank you for all the testimonies that you guys have submitted. I also want to.
Sorry, Director Nakamoto. Let the record reflect that there was a total of 214 written testimonies.
214, okay,
Yes.
sorry. 214 testimonies. I also want to talk about sort of the larger context of HCDA's approvals, what that involves, just for context. And then finally, why we're here today with this agenda item, and then what is at issue in this agenda item specifically. So I'm just gonna cover those 4 points. Again, thank you for the testimony. So the larger context of HCDA's approvals, again, we have some new board members, so I want to just provide some, education information on this. So for this project, the project is being proposed on 19 acres of HCDA owned land. And after I'm done, Honokea will come up and present some additional information and give specifics about what the project is, what the improvements are being proposed for it. So I'll leave that up to Mr. Kealana and his team. But from our perspective, since it is on HCDA land, there's really 2 distinct approvals that need to be obtained. One is the board has to approve the terms of a ground lease. That's one thing, the terms of a ground lease with the Honokea entity. The second is because HCDA is the regulatory and zoning authority for the district, the regulatory and zoning authority for the district. Lindsay, can you just move a little bit to your right, sorry, because I see the. Sorry, thank you, Lindsay, for now, anyway. So the other approval that we have to give and review is the zoning, as a zoning authority, review the zoning application or land use application. So let me talk about the last one first. So right now, we've been working with Honokea on the application for a development permit. We've been working with them informally on the application. But they haven't submitted a formal application yet because they're waiting for concurrence from SHPD, the State Historic Preservation Department. And once that is received and we review it, then we can schedule a public hearing on it. The public hearing is usually a 2-part hearing. It's a presentation hearing, and then usually a month elapses, and then we do a decision-making hearing. So a 2-part hearing. But we haven't received the formal application again because Honokea is still waiting on the SHPD concurrence. The other part of the development permit process is the applicant has to show some sort of site control. So what that typically means is that the applicant owns the land, right? So they own the land upon which they can do this project, because you can't have a project unless you have site control, you own the land. The other way it sometimes happens, and this is the case with this one, is that you have to have a ground lease. A ground lease, because the land is owned by HCDA. So we have been working on that ground lease terms. So why are we here today? So Mauna Kea, its principals, John, Kino, Steve, and Charlie Hunter, council have been working with us for a few months now on trying to, get to these ground lease terms. And there are many ground lease terms that need to be included, including, the typical provisions in a ground lease that always are included in ground lease terms, as well as the term of it, 65 years. But I think between Mauna Kea and HCDA, we've chosen to focus on two issues that are sort of the gateway issues for the lease. In other words, if we can't agree on these two terms, then it really doesn't make sense to talk about any other terms. So we put aside some of the standard terms for discussion later, if we can agree on these two sort of gateway key terms. So from sort of the beginning of the project, and the beginning of our discussions on the lease terms, what at least we, meaning I've identified as key terms, are the lease, rent, and this so-called restoration fund. As far as the merits of the project, I think, and whether it's a good project or not, I think a lot of us, including board members, the fact that this right of entry and due diligence agreement has been entered into to allow the parties time to look at things indicates at least there's some interest in the project. So these negotiations don't have any bearing on whether it's a good project or bad project. What we're trying to do is come up with a lease terms and a ground lease that's satisfactory to the board and also protects the rights of both parties, because that's what the ground lease needs to do. It needs to protect the rights of both parties, the landowner and the lessee, Mauna Kea. So we've been having these discussions, for the last 3 or 4 months, but it was suggested to me that we bring this matter to the board, to have them take a look at it, and have some discussion on these two lease terms. So that's why we're here today. We're also, wanted to tell you what is really at issue here. So what really is at issue here is the two gateway terms that I just mentioned. The two gateway terms are, again, the ground rent. What is the ground rent gonna be for the lease? That's what the landlord or the landowner pays to, the landowner collects from a lessee. And the other is the restoration obligations. Now, if this was on land that wasn't owned by HCDA, it was on somebody else's land, it was land owned by Mauna Kea, I don't think we'd be having this discussion. But this is on land that's owned by HCDA, and I think HCDA and myself, we feel we have a duty to protect the interests of HCDA as a good steward to state property and as a good steward to the property that's been entrusted to the agency. So on the restoration fund, just to start with that one, we've had a lot of discussions about this. Typically in a lease, long-term lease, there is an obligation at the end of a lease term or at some point for the lessee to, at the lessor's discretion, to remove the improvements. And those are just sometimes words that are in the lease. What we've been talking about for the last 3 or 4 months is what is the financial obligation that is gonna back up those words? Because I don't think words are enough. I think it has to have some kind of financial backing. And I want to bring to light I mean, maybe two examples in my career that have kind of caused me to look at this. Back in the day, long time ago in my early part of my career, I was working for a landowner and we were faced with, I don't know if any of you remember Castle Park, the development near the stadium that went under, and then there was a question as to who's gonna pay for the demolition of that. So there was a sinking fund, but I worked for the landowner then. So that was my first sort of introduction to that Castle Park. Only those that are of my age are gonna know that, near the stadium. But the more recent example, and I mentioned this to the Honokia folks, so it's not gonna be anything new. Because everything has a perspective, right? Your views are kind of shaped by something that's happened. Part of our recent work was to help DLNR with a project in Waiakea Peninsula area on the island of Hawaii, known as Banyan Drive. So one of the things that I think DLNR has struggled with is how to demolish the Uncle Billy's improvements. And they've had to go to the legislature to get funding. Now, that's something that I prefer not to have to do. I mean, I know that if that ever happens in this project, I won't be at HCDA anymore, but I don't feel like I want to leave that as a legacy to other executive directors that follow me to have to somehow get funding in case Honokia is gone, they've left, they abandoned the lease, or let's say they've gone bankrupt, or there's a foreclosure and somebody doesn't want to take it away, take it over. Now, board members, I mean, I think there's going to be a lot of discussion about this, whether or not this is a practical thing, this is realistic, or whether or not, you know, it's even the right thing to do. But I feel like some sort of fund is necessary, and we've talked about different alternatives with Honokia, to be fair. Start out with a kind of a bond, like some kind of performance bond or some kind of surety bond, almost like what you get in a construction bond. We've talked about, you know, having some kind of escrow account or some kind of fund like that. We've even, and then it's kind of evolved into a fund where certain amount of monies would be deposited into this account by Honokia. And it would grow to a certain amount to keep up with the inflated cost of the rising cost of demolishing the improvements at some point. Now, arguably, like I said, this kind of comes into play if Honokia is gone. Let's say there's a foreclosure and nobody wants to buy it. And my sort of pressing this issue has been because if the project was a 4-story housing project, or if it was a strip mall, arguably there's a wider market for a lender to go to sell the project to. A lender who's in foreclosure does not want to own and operate any kind of business, whether it's a strip mall or something else. So that kind of project probably has a wider market to sell to, of buyers. But a specialty project like this with a big wave pool, specialty technology and other things, I kind of perceive it to have a limited market of people who want to buy it. So I try to protect against the possibility that there is no buyer out there who's willing to buy this in the event, and unlikely, of something happening to the project, like a foreclosure, the lessee goes bankrupt or some other instance. Now, yes, it's a little bit of kind of, you know, playing to the boogeyman about this, but try to sort of cover some possible eventuality. So they proposed a fund. They've also proposed that we hold the fund, right? And invest it, but that's not something I'm willing to do because I think it puts the agency at risk for, you know, lack of investment returns and all that. So there is a proposal that's out there right now. It's the latest proposal that we've offered. from the time that we started this discussion and we wanted a bond and so forth, our position has been from day one to year 65, or the 65th year, you gotta have enough money in that fund to cover the cost of demolition, adjusted for inflation. We've since kind of moved and progressed a little bit, so we've given a little bit on that, so we're asking for a certain amount of money to be put into the fund at month, I think 36 or 37, about $4 million, and then Hono Care would contribute annually to that, and then hopefully they catch up. And then maybe have periodic re-reviews of the estimated cost of demolition. And if there's a deficiency in the fund, they would have to, make up for the shortfall. Now, there's two things that still remain open a little bit. One, I think, is the study that they did on the demolition cost was just an estimate. So that needs to be firmed up a little bit, as I understand it. It has to take into account not just the demolition and the removing of the surface improvements, but there's gonna be 3 injection wells that need to be taken care of. I mean, the other thing that we're still working through, and there's still a concern, is this fund, if it's gonna be in the hands of Hono Care, I wanna try to make sure that that fund is not subject to the reach of bankruptcy, like the bankruptcy court, or, reach of creditors in the event of a bankruptcy. Because if that happened, it would be almost like, not having a fund or having a partial fund. So that's my concern, is I don't want the agency to be stuck with improvements on its hands that is difficult for someone to buy, or it's challenging to sell. And I certainly don't want to have to go to the legislature to ask for $10 or $20 million to remove this. I mean, I don't want the agency to be that agency that does that. And I think as a whole, we have a duty as a steward of state land to protect against that to the best we can. On the lease rent, we commissioned a broker opinion of value to get the projected lease rent for the property. We sometimes, as the case is, the other side will get another opinion of value, sometimes an MAI appraisal or something. Hono Care has chosen not to get this, so we have this broker opinion of value that sets the initial rent at $610,000 or so a year initially, with escalations. And we've kind of stuck to that value. Now, you'll hear in the testimony, that the broker opinion is flawed. The broker opinion doesn't take into account certain comps, and it's just flawed, okay? Now, to that point, board members, I mean, we procured for this broker opinion of value because we didn't feel comfortable just establishing ground rent on our own. And as a state agency, we're bound to go get some kind of opinion, a third-party opinion on rent. So we did, okay? But just to let everyone know, once we procured it and once we awarded to Colliers to do this report, right, this broker opinion of value, we didn't direct them to a certain result. We didn't ask them to exclude certain comps. We didn't ask them to include certain comps either. We just set them on their way and they did it. So it wasn't MAI made as instructed. It was, they did it as they felt in their judgment needed to be. Now, like I said, you're gonna hear that in the testimony, you're gonna see that maybe in the comments, but that's just, I'm just telling you, that's the way it happened. Their latest proposal is to suggest some reduced construction period rent for a certain period of time. And it's my view and the team's view that it is a common practice, and it was definitely a common practice in the office market environment to get landlord concessions, landlord kind of allowances, as they called it, to induce or a certain party from leasing up office space in a market where maybe it was more difficult to lease up office space. In what we're dealing with the property we're dealing with, this is, I don't feel it's necessary to give construction period rent. The broker opinion of value didn't state that, so although it was sent to us like that as a last proposal, we haven't agreed on that yet. We have not agreed on it yet. I think finally, there's been some discussion among discussion that somehow these kind of terms have to be across the board the same way for every property that we deal with. Property in Kaka'ako, property out in Kalaeloa, property out everywhere, that we gotta be consistent in our approach. I would argue a little bit different. That's just my opinion. I think property by its very nature is not fungible. Every property has unique characteristics, unique things that have to be addressed. That's why every ground lease is not like every other ground lease. That's why every other situation is not like any other situation. And each particular property has its unique challenges and opportunities. And this one has its challenges because I think of the project that's being proposed and the fact that we're a state agency, and I don't want to be that state agency that has to get money to demolish improvements that we can't use or anybody doesn't want. So it's not fungible. And so that is a summary of the staff report and where we stand. As of right now, there is no agreement, board members. We've come to this point where there is no agreement. I won't say that there is no way we're gonna agree. I'm not gonna say that there's no way we're gonna not agree or agree on something. But at this point, we don't agree on these two essential terms. And it's not about the good or bad of the project, whether it represents economic development and other things. This is about two specific issues that we're talking about. I just had the opportunity to meet, Brian Kealana, and I have a lot of respect for it. So I respect the project, I respect the people who are working on this. But these are the two issues the technical issues that remain with this. Chair.
Thank you, Executive Director Nakamoto. At this time, members, are there any questions or comments in regards to the staff report? Member Higo.
And then Chair, do you wanna, do you wanna call up Honokia first, or you wanna answer questions first for me?
Why don't we answer questions for you? Call up Honokia.
That sounds good. Okay.
Member Higo.
Yeah, so this is a question on the language of the recommendation to not authorize. If the board were to adopt the motion as suggested in the staff report, and let's say 2 weeks from now, the surf park is to bring a counteroffer that is actually within the realm of acceptability. At that point, Craig, you wouldn't be able to accept their offer, right?
So no, that I think, let me just clarify that a little bit. It's a good question, Member Higa. So the exclusive negotiating agreement and the right of entry gives Honokea the right of entry onto the property if they need to do any due diligence. I'm not sure that Honokea really needs to do any more of that, but it's there anyway. The exclusive negotiating agreement gives Honokea the right to an exclusive dealings with us for the ground lease and other kinds of other property. There's two options we could do with a motion and action for this. I mean, we could let the exclusive negotiations term and the right of entry term expire on March 15th. So without any board action, it wouldn't be necessary to do anything. And if the board instructed us to keep on negotiating with Honokea, we can and will negotiate with Honokea, even if that's the direction and even though the term expires on March 15th. on the.
It just wouldn't be an exclusive, right?
Correct. Now, maybe Charlie and Honokia team might like the comfort of having an exclusive negotiated agreement. So the other option, if we want to allow the discussions to continue, is to motion a little bit and authorize and have the board just authorize an extension for maybe a couple of months to allow the discussions to continue. Member Higa, if we reach an agreement on the lease terms, then we still have to come back to the board for finalizing the.
Yeah,
And
so
then, of course,
my follow-up question, sorry, just to clarify though, is this authorization doesn't require you to extend it. It just gives you the ability to decide, right? If we were to amend this motion and say we do authorize you to extend, it doesn't create an obligation for you to extend. I guess the question is there a way to phrase this motion so that it just gives you, Craig Nakamoto, Executive Director of HCDA, the authority to proceed as you see fit?
I guess we could, you know, fashion the motion that way to authorize me to proceed as we see fit. I guess having come to the board and presented this, Member Higa, I would appreciate this direction on, do you want me to continue discussions with Honokia or not? I think that would be helpful. If the direction is to continue discussions, then I think you can say, you know, you give me the discretion to proceed as appropriate. And what I would do in that case is to continue discussions with Honokia until we've reached a conclusion, whether it's we agree on ground lease terms or we don't.
Thank you, Member Higa. Other questions from the board?
Member Miranda Johnson.
Member Miranda Johnson.
Sorry, Chair, just wondering, do we have any other plans for this site or any other parties that have shown interest in the site?
I was, Member Miranda Johnson, I was kind of asked the same question by the Honokia folks. And right now, because we're kind of in this exclusive negotiations agreement, we haven't sought out anybody. Nobody has came to us for shown any interest, but we haven't gone out to anybody because we have this exclusive negotiation agreement in place. Now, that doesn't mean that there isn't interest for this parcel from a greater community. If this project doesn't proceed, then what might be a good thing to do from a planning perspective would be to kind of maybe RFP this property to see who might be interested in developing on this property that could, in a way benefit the state, maybe benefit the airport in some way, or benefit other, state properties in Kalaeloa, or just benefit the state as a whole.
Okay, understand. I guess my question also regarding the restoration fund, I know that we had put in another offer to say, not have the full 10 million at the beginning, to have just 4 million to start, and then different step increases, yearly increases. The injection wells, should that be solely on HK to be, removing them? I'm asking that if we had someone else, if we didn't have anyone else, I should say, HCDA would need to remove them. So are we giving some concession to them for that removal?
I think, if this was, remember Miranda Johnson, if the improvements are things that like piping, kind of things that could be used by another user of the land, like, utility pipes, electrical conduits, other kinds of things, I don't think it would be fair to ask HK to remove it. But when we're talking about 3 injection wells and a large wave pool, I think those are specialty things that I think are fair to ask, because I'm not sure other users of the land, whoever they may be, have a need for something like that.
Understood. I'll defer to other members for questions.
Member Evans, questions? Thank you, Member Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me? Sorry, I'm getting over a cold. In light of the number of testimonies that support this project in concept, I would be inclined to have a motion that did extend the right of entry and the exclusive negotiating agreement for an additional 3 months. I think, it sounds like the staff has done incredible due diligence on this and very thoughtful concern for both the eventual use in 65 years or shorter if that happens. And I think given all of that work, it warrants an additional 3 months to see if this could be worked out. I certainly take note of your 2 threshold terms that need to be worked out. And of course, the fact that the zoning and development permit is another decision point for the staff and the board. But I'd like to see an additional 3 months for the 2 documents, the right of entry and the exclusive negotiating agreement, just to see if, I don't believe that there's a rush here. And I think with all of that community effort, maybe there is a solution.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Member Evans. We can take that into consideration as we look at the motion upon after the public testimony in Hono Kea.
Sure.
So thank you. Other
Yeah.
Member Strikes.
Also,
Member Apple, go ahead.
yeah, I would agree with the member Evans thing. I'm probably gonna save most of my comments for after the testimony. But central to my discomfort, and I'm in no way any kind of expert on development and cost and financial, but it just seems kind of weird to have a person pay, go out, take out a loan to build something, and then they also have to take out a loan to tear it down. There's something unbalanced about that. Now, I do realize that there's a lot of flexibility in there in what's required, the amount of money that would be required to protect, the HCDA interests. So it's a very interesting thing. But I'd like to hear some of the testimony and then I'll make more comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Apple. Member Strikes.
Chair, question for the director. I noticed the initial term was 18 months, extended for 18 months. What is the rationale for just 3 months on this?
I think we've had this right of exclusive negotiating agreement has been in place for quite a while. I think if you kind of look at, I'm trying to do it relatively speaking, I think having a 2 or 3 month extension versus an 18 months. We can do 18 months, but I think my sort of feeling is that if we have 18 months, we'll use 18 months. And I'm not sure if the Hono Kea folks wanna move this out for 18 months. Just my feeling, okay? The second is more practical. I think we spent a lot of time talking about these 2 gateway issues. We spent a lot of time and we've gone back and forth. I mean, in good faith, we've gone back and forth with a lot of different ideas, starting with the bond idea and evolving into this. I think if we're gonna resolve the 2 gateway issues, one way or the other, I think it's entirely possible that we could do it in 2 or 3 months. I think it's possible to do it in 2 to 3 months. I think that's the kind of time we need. And again, I'm more thinking if we have 18 months, we'll take 18 months. And just human nature, and I don't think the Auto Care folks are gonna be looking at me and saying, we want 18 months. I don't think that's their timing. So just my thoughts, members.
Thank you. Any other comments before we call up Mauna Kea? Boards, any kind of questions? No, if not, let's call up Mauna Kea. Thank you.
Good morning, board. Thank you, Chair. My name is Charlie Hunter. I'm counsel for applicant HK Management LLC. Thank you also to Executive Director Nakamoto and to the staff. We've spent a lot of time over the past few months in discussions in great detail on a lot of these issues. And the staff and executive director have been available to us. And, you know, we've made progress. We've talked about a lot of other issues aside from the restoration fund and the rent amounts. But yeah, these are the two key issues that we face now. Excuse me. So just to give a little bit of background on the project, I recognize that Director Nakamoto has said that, you know, it appears to be a good project. It appears to be, you know, in line with the master plan for Kalaeloa. I'd like to add that the Mauna Kea team has been working on this project for 8 years. There have been environmental assessments, planning, a huge amount of resources and time from the entire team that have brought us to where we are today. And this is to create a world-class facility that would be a benefit to the community. It propagates family values, promotes Native Hawaiian culture, community gathering, all of the things that if you look at the Kalaeloa master plan, you look at the inception of what is desired in that area, it's exactly what should be there. The Kalaeloa master plan has a vision to create social value, new economic development, employment opportunities, social and cultural programs and activities, to bring Kupuna and Keiki together, to share cultural knowledge and develop technical expertise, to have open space recreation facilities. This is a $150 million project. It's huge. And just in the construction phase, the benefit that provides is enormous. So, you know, at a time when construction appears to be slowing, visitor spending is down, this is a project that the community needs and should have. It's been well thought out from the beginning. And anyway, I would like to call Mr. Brian Kailana to say a few words about the project, if the board would. Oh.
Absolutely.
If you please.
Yes.
Anyway, good morning, board members. You know, I just a local boy from being raised by my parents, who's Buffalo Keaulana, Momi Keaulana. There was a pillar, you know, still are in our community. And, you know, being raised in Makaha, it's like one village mentality, right? It's all the values we all been grown up with. And I travel around the world. I work in the film industry full time now. My background in life saving, all that, we spread our knowledge and our skills, not just here in Hawaii, but around the world. And I see the benefits of our knowledge and our skills being promoted around the world, those kind of things also too. And I see the values of where that extend from my parents to everyone else, of how we watch each other as kids and sharing each other's foods and all those kind of things. But I will tell you the truth, you know, right now is such a desperate time living in Makai. You know, I get people in our community right here and stuff too. I look at everyone's faces here. We all get the same concerns. How do we keep instilling our kids in our values that we have today? For me, Mauna Kea and this what everybody calls Serpa is just one platform for us to build upon that community, which should hold strong. You know, because nowadays our kids they don't respect their parents. You know, they don't want that family values. and they're just getting diluted in so much. What we do back in McCall with our junior lifeguard program or at-risk kids, I mean, you know, we love them, but we give them perimeters, we give them discipline. And that's the kind of stuff that we try to promote, you know, in this. And the reason why we took so long, you know, in all these 8 years, because I've been grown up to ask permission before you get permits. Talk to the community, talk to everybody first, you know, ask our elders, build your foundation first before you even come up. So it's been a long road inside where we are right now, you know, and it is emotional for me. I mean, I'm busy every single day of trying to figure out how we can try and just put us in one better place, you know, in not just Macau, but our whole state, because no matter where I go in our state, I see all that family values that exist. You know, I just did Chief of War with, you know, my cousin's Jason Momoa, right? We did this movie and he made me one of the producers on that. And what was great about making me one of the local producers is it gave me the power to really push for the economy and keep the money here and hire local people, you know, and all this kind of stuff like that. But you have to have one seat at that level, because again, you know, it's like when you build something and then all of a sudden we just get overtaken by people from the outside. What you look here is, Holicare is not one mainland group. It's all locals. You know, that's the difference and stuff also do it. But, you know, I can talk on and on, but, you know, that's really where we came from and stuff. And I appreciate everybody who really came and stuff also too, you know, and all the testimony and stuff also too. And even for the people that even oppose this, right on, because it's their passion, because I really love our values of how passionate we are. Just when you make decision, please be educated about what we're making that decisions about. That's all I ask.
Thank you. Thank you. Any board members have any questions for Mauna Kea? And if not, you have additional information that you want to share?
I'd like to speak a little bit of detail
Sure.
on the lease and the fund if possible, but if there's any questions for Uncle Kalaeloa.
Board members, any questions? If not, why don't you go ahead and proceed?
Okay. So the decision on the table as to whether or not to extend the ENA or ROA for 90 days. I think that ideally Mauna Kea would prefer a longer period of time for that. Just given where we've come from, how much energy has been expended by the team. You know, I would think a 6-month extension would be in order. We don't know how busy the AG's office is. I think that could create some delays. So, you know, if we're going to extend, I think that would be appropriate. If the board sees fit, and if Executive Director Nakamoto sees fit, I don't know if it makes sense to have a permitted interaction group form so we can have the discussion. Mauna Kea is certainly open to that as a possibility. Let's speak briefly on the lease rent structure. We submitted our public testimony, and if any of the board members here would like it, I have it printed. But it's been submitted and it goes through some of these details. But in effect, you know, the VOV is not an appraisal. It states in it on every page that it may not be relied upon by any person or entity other than the client. Colliers is not licensed to perform real property appraisals. It's not performed in accordance with the uniform standards of professional appraisal practice. But more importantly, it's not representative of the market or property value. The 4 comparable properties within that VOV are not within the Kalaeloa district. They're zoned for commercial, mixed use, and resort use. 3 of them are within the transit-oriented TOD zone, and none of them are subject to HCDA. It ignores 4 relevant comps that probably should have been examined. We don't know whether or not they were intentionally omitted by Colliers, or if Colliers doesn't know about them, or what happened in forming the BOV. But there's the Danakaka Veteran Center, the Kaula project in Gentry, DHHL, Homeland Solar, and the Aloha Solar Energy Fund. And Aloha Solar is a HCDA lease. So in the beginning of discussions, we looked at the Aloha Solar lease, which was provided by staff, and it made sense. And our initial proposal was to pay those rents, even though the property, the subject property is half the size. We were willing to pay what Aloha Solar was paying, which is about $250,000. You know, this is a property that's in the T2 transect. It's rural and open space. It's not commercially zoned. It's far different from anything in the BOV. So, you know, while I appreciate that the BOV has provided guidance to HCDA and staff, we have a hard time swallowing its findings. And so that's kind of the background. The Aloha Solar lease has reduced rents during the construction period, which I think is essential. You know, with permitting delays and how things are, to start rent on day one is very difficult. And then we wanted to reflect rents that are market value. On the demolition restoration fund issue, this arose years into the process, and we were kind of caught off guard by it. And I can appreciate Director Nakamoto's and the staff's concerns that if the project were to fail at some point in time, that the improvements are unique. And, you know, that would be a problem potentially. And the last thing that HCDA wants to do is go to the legislature and ask for money to clean up the problem. I get that. Here, we've worked to understand that HCDA, that's going to be a requirement of some kind. What we would like to see is a fund that builds up through the term of the lease. Uncle Billy's project or problem occurred at the end of that lease, I believe. And if the lease language had reflected not just words, but a fund throughout the term of the lease, that would have been avoided. And that can be the case here too. You know, on a 65-year lease, there's plenty of time to build up a fund that will assure the property be restored in the event that it needs to be. Even with the unique improvements, there are a lot of uses that could be made of that property, even if Honokea was not there. You know, there are building facilities, there's a lagoon, you know, there's potential for wedding, luau, community space, you know, there are uses for that property, regardless of what happens going down the line. We talked about underground utilities. At this point, we're not even certain that the injection wells will be a part of the actual build. So, you know, there may be a contingency we can discuss in the lease on that. To pull out other underground utilities seems wasteful, because anyone who would come in would probably want water and power. So, you know, that's another issue that we've discussed. So, unless there's other questions, I don't want to take up too much else of the board's time. We would love an extension. We believe it's appropriate. And thank you to the board and to Director Nakamoto and staff for everything that's happened and bringing us here today. Happy to answer any
Thank you.
questions. Thank you, Chair.
Board, is there any additional questions before we go to public testimony? If not, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So there were a total of 214 written testimonies in support of Honokea that were submitted and emailed to board members. We will accept oral testimony in the following order: persons who signed up prior to the meeting date, persons present in the physical location, and persons online in the Zoom meeting. Speakers will be called upon to testify in the order in which they have signed up. Public testimony will be again limited to 3 minutes each. Since each authority member has or will be given a copy of any written testimony, that you might have provided, please refrain from reading your written testimony and instead just summarize your comments in the time you have available. When you've been called upon, please clearly state your name as well as any organization that you may or may not be representing. There are 18 persons who signed up to provide live testimony. We'll be calling from that list in accordance to those that have signed up. Again, you have 3 minutes. We'll give you the 1 minute and 30-second warning. If you go beyond the 3 minutes, after the 30 seconds, I would have to call upon the next live testimony. Thank you.
Chair, do you want me to call them up?
Yeah, so if you could, don't mind.
Okay. So first testifier is Mr. Welton.
Right, I'm up over here.
Please, thank you.
Good morning. Good morning, Mr. Welton.
My name is Eric Welton.
Okay. Have a seat. It's only 3 minutes, but you should sit.
So I've been a longtime volunteer for Access Surf. I started volunteering for them for about 15 years ago. I've recently become a board member as well. So helping to shape the community, to build the accessibility of our community, being a surfer and being someone who loves Hawaii and loves to be in the water. The project has focused greatly on accessibility and inclusivity for the community of people that we at Access Surf strive to serve. And so I'm just here showing my support for the project because from a personal level, one of the most difficult things about surfing for me, well, besides catching the wave and standing up, is getting in and out of the water. I have a prosthetic leg and it fills up with sand. I've been, chomped by short break waves because I can't run quite fast enough to get out of the way. So being able to surf a wave that's accessible without having to take all the sand out of my leg would be greatly helpful for me. So that's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for your time.
Thank you very much for your
you.
testimony.
Thank you. Okay, next one. Ready, Gary?
Yep.
Okay. Next testifier is Jerry Heller. Mr. Heller? No.
Morning, board.
Oh,
My name
hi,
is
Mr.
Jerry
Heller.
Heller. Thank you for having us here today. As well, I'm a parent of an adaptive surfer, 2017 world champ. And we've been involved with Access Surf since the beginning, 16 years ago. So I've watched this group grow from just getting a few people into the water to like hundreds and in international surfing competitions. As it is now that my daughter's grown up, she cannot, we're both busy, she can't get herself into the water. So the fact that she could take the handyman and go to a surf park and practice on her own with safety there, so she can be competitive in this world of adaptive surfing is growing, which is, we're pushing for the Olympics in 2028. The use for a facility like that is definitely necessary. And as well as the values that Mauna Kea is bringing. I've also been a member of the Big Wave Risk Assessment Group, which Uncle Brian has put together. And in that, the water safety and community that is affected by that is huge. I myself has had to do some life saving just in the last few years on my own, rescue people getting sucked in a riptide, and those are things that I learned in that program. So I believe that it's invaluable, and the community aspect of this program is outreaching. I mean, I think about the kids who, there'll be a kayaking river. Like, you grew up in Hawaii, there's no rivers to kayak. You have to hit some stream that's like overflowing and like it's unsafe. Imagine somebody at a beach growing up wanting to be a kayaker. Now there's a place to kayak. Now there's a high diving board. Now there's a park where you can go and be with your friends. So I feel like it's a great, way for the community.
1 minute remaining.
And, as well as a jobs program, you know, so I'm here in full support. Thank you for your
Thank you,
time.
Mr. Heller.
Thank you very much.
Sure. Could we take one testifier on board just because she may need to leave before?
Sure, who's that?
Is that okay? Kara Short.
Appreciate that. So Kara Short.
Hi, Ms. Short.
Thank you for your time.
Go ahead.
So my name is Kara Short and I'm the Executive Director of Access Surf Hawaii. And for any board members who are not familiar with our organization, we're a local nonprofit that provides adaptive water sports programs for anyone with a disability. And we are obviously here in full support of Mauna Kea. And there's many reasons for that, but what I'd like to share with you today is the aspect of accessibility and inclusion. The team at Mauna Kea brought us in from the design phase to talk about and learn what does accessibility look like from a physical and sensory standpoint, which is really evolutionary and revolutionary, I would have to say. In my years with Access Surf, it is kind of a constant, I'd say, struggle for people with disabilities to be included and to have accessibility. And the fact that the Mauna Kea community is building on so many amazing values, but that accessibility and inclusion is one of their main features is really incredible. We have 22% of our population in Hawaii are diagnosed with a disability. And the majority of those people do not have regular access to the beach, to the ocean, to activities, and even community. The water part is a big piece of it, but just the inclusion and socialization and community is huge. So it's very significant that we are in full support using our name with Access Surf, because obviously as a nonprofit, we have to be very careful with people, using our name in support of a project, especially if it has some sort of opposition. But we strongly believe in this project, that it's going to serve a larger population of the community that maybe board members might not realize are in great need of. So there's lots of reasons why we love the project and the individuals, but I do want to say that it's something I've never experienced before, that they would go to the level that they have to make sure that this facility is accessible is incredible. And it's very, very late chiming in for people.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you for
Short.
your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next testifier is Dawn Hunt, Ms. Hunt.
Morning, my name is
Good
Dawn
morning.
Hunt.
Good morning.
So, I'm here in support of the Mauna Kea West, project. I know it's been a long time in the planning, and I just really think it's important for, the board at this point to really understand what the project's all about. There's many facets here that the project's based upon, and it's about building community, restoration of land in a proper way. And I think to recognize that the team here is, as we've said earlier, they're all local. They want to do the best for Hawaii and keep things in Hawaii and perpetuate Hawaiian culture and values and do good by the land. I hear your concerns here, but I also think it's important to recognize that the team is more than willing to work with the HCDA in the appropriate way and a fair manner to do what's right, whether they succeed or if they fail, to be pono and to malama the aina, no matter what. If the pool works and the attraction and the facilities that's provided for our local kids, I would love to see my kids have access to a facility to possibly be an Olympian. I come from a family that has Olympic caliber kayakers and are amazing watermen and waterwomen internationally. So I think it's an amazing opportunity to keep things local here. A lot of my cousins have had to go to the mainland. That's a stress on family. It's an extra expense. There's no support for their keiki to excel. I think it would be fantastic to just keep it here and then also open up other avenues. Like you said, for the state, we could have a boost in the film industry, creating underwater filming capabilities, accessibility and inclusion for everybody, and would just be an overall awesome way to perpetuate Hawaiian culture and surf and love for our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hunt.
Thank you.
Next testifier is Ava Heller. Ms. Heller?
She's going to skip.
Oh, you sure? Next testifier is Judith Canarium. Hi, Ms. Canarium.
Good
Good
afternoon.
af-
I'm Judy Canarium.
Yeah,
I'm here just to support the project. I think it's great for the community, and I think there's a lot of private organizations that would benefit for it, and I'd just like to see the board to put everything through. Thank you.
thank you. Thank you. Next testifier is Jade Vaughn. Ms. Vaughn? Oh, sorry. Timer. Hold on for a second. Let me get the timer set. Okay, there you go. Go ahead.
My name is Jay Vaughn. I am a UH Athletics alumni and former Olympic hopeful. During my athletic career here, I noticed that many of our young local athletes have to leave here to get the facilities that they need to train to the caliber. And I support Mauna Kea and their initiative to develop and support our athletes here in Hawaii, keep them here, develop them.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Vaughn. Next testifier is Irish Barber. Hi, Ms. Barber.
Aloha.
Welcome.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, board members. My name's Irish, like Irish Spring, Barber, like barbershop. I know you asked us to spell it. I have been in the film industry for over almost 40 years, and I've known Brian Keolana that whole entire time. I also serve as the business agent and head of IATSC Local 665. We do all of the behind the scenes technicians and artistry on all of the film, television, live events, and trade shows. Do not be fooled by Brian Keolanda's humbleness. He is a leader in our film community and in the Native Hawaiian community. I don't see too many people in this room that look like me and Brian. And as you can see, he's very papa'a because he works outdoors all the time. We are currently filming a lifeguard TV series on the North Shore and working alongside his water safety team. He is a leader and stellar role model for Native Hawaiian children. And that's really important when you look at where Native Hawaiians are. We are the most incarcerated, homeless, and drug addicted. So when we have the opportunity to help support all of this generational trauma from the overthrow to today, where you have a lot of catching up to do as Native Hawaiians and people in authority as you are that can help entrepreneurs who are Native Hawaiian. I think that if you're on the fence, that should push you a little bit in the direction of helping. I appreciate your due diligence at looking at the project and explaining the questions behind opposition. But in reality, when you're looking at technology, nobody knows. Nobody knows what this project is whether it's gonna take off or fail. So that's Brian. Let me run some numbers by you, the economic impact of the film industry. In 2019, prior to the pandemic, we brought in $497 million in direct spend into Hawaii's community, $800 million in economic impact, which is almost $1 billion in 1 year. Australians, they said they created surfing. We all know that's not true. So we need to be able to practice on the off season to keep our surfing techniques and to also train lifeguards for off season, because when the big waves come, you have to be ready. So that and
30 seconds.
That's it.
Okay,
Thank
thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you. Next testifier is Michael Wick. Okay, sorry. Is it Wick or Wick? White, okay.
That's all right.
Sorry about that.
Wiggle's my nickname.
Okay.
Hi, Michael Weigel. I'm a production designer in the local 800 Art Directors Guild. I work locally, I live locally, but my guild is also international. So a lot of times when we hear about film projects coming here, just so you know, as a production designer, I design the sets and the art and the look of films. I work as a leader in my department with a lot of really wonderful and talented crew who help bring these whole worlds together. When we're looking at projects that are coming in, there is a conversation that starts. I mean, a lot of our film projects here are centered around the incredible beauty and natural resources of this incredible place. But one of the problems that comes up is producers and the heads of these projects will look at us and they'll go, there's a few resources we'd really like to have in order to film or make this project happen, but Hawaii doesn't have those. And one of them is an aquatic stage. And this is part of this project, the Kalaeloa West. And I speak in support of this project because I see the future where we're able to have these larger projects come film on a controlled, safe environment for our crew. And not only as an environment to film these things for its projects, but to train all of our younger crew who've not worked on an aquatic stage before and actually give them the proper training and the resources so that we can continue building this. I know the University of Hawaii, Manoa West is building $100 million film studio. And to pair that film studio with more resources that bring more projects here so that Native Hawaiian stories, like the beautiful culture of storytelling here really like personally impacted me, not just professional, but being able to tell those stories and to bring them to the rest of the world instead of having those stories go elsewhere. Uncle Brian mentioned that he went to New Zealand to film Chief of War. A lot of wonderful crew from here went to tell that beautiful story. But one of the considerations for going to New Zealand was they had access to an aquatic stage. So with all those considerations in mind, from my background, I speak in support. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Weigel. Next testifier is Chris Delaney. Mr. Delaney. Morning.
Morning. Aloha Chair, board members, Chris Delaney with Pacific Resource Partnership. We represent the Carpenters Union and 250 contractors in the state of Hawaii. We're in strong support of the Kalaeloa West project. See this as a gathering place for community and visitors to train, educate, and share. Hawaii is a birthplace for surfing, and the facility will be equipped to train not only the next generation of Olympic athletes in surfing and beach volleyball, but also rock climbing, swimming, BMX, skateboarding, triathlete training, and kayaking. They'll provide an inclusive environment and accessibility for adaptive athletes who can't use natural facilities such as the ocean. Educate. Kalaeloa West will provide opportunities to educate by offering social and cultural programs for schools, teaching Hawaiian surf history and water life safety, as well as numerous activities promoting outdoor physical education, ocean conservation, and sustainability. Share. This is a place to share Hawaiian culture and rich surfing history, and a place where our future generations can carry on the Hawaiian life-saving legacy. Most importantly, it's a place where our keiki can focus on something positive and that could lead to a career opportunity or just recreational fun. We also support this project because it's going to create construction jobs for Hawaii residents, paying them a living wage and benefits. These types of jobs provide residents with an opportunity to afford Hawaii's high cost of living, keep residents off of welfare and other government assistance programs. It's going to stimulate our local economy and provide economic stability for workers and their families. So we strongly support this project and ask for your favorable decision.
Thanks, Mr. Delaney. Thank you. Next testifier is Lem Suzuki, Rocky Naiole.
Lena.
Oh, hi. Oh, Lena, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Good morning, good
Good
afternoon, Ms.
morning,
Suzuki.
aloha. So aloha, my name is Lena Suzuki. I am a founding member of the Waianae Moku Kumaka Council. So I am here also representing our Ali'i Moku Rocky Naiole. So one of the things I just wanted to share with you guys is we get plenty of people moving away from our islands. And it's because the lack of jobs or careers in things that we're naturally good at. So in our Moku of Waianae, we are naturally watermen and waterwomen. And so having facilities like this will give a lot of job opportunities for our people. The other thing I wanted to share is, I don't know if you guys have friends that are EMTs or work in the emergency room. And so a lot of our tourists come and they go in places they're really not supposed to go, and then they get hurt. Yeah, and so not only they get hurt, they put our lifeguards in danger too. So by having a facility like this, hopefully we're not gonna eliminate it, but maybe reduce it, right? And the last thing I wanted to share is Hawaii is always behind on development and not leading the way. And surfing coming from us, and now Australia is trying to take it from us. And having these type of infrastructures for our people to excel, you guys will have the opportunity to say, I had a part of that. So when we're looking into this negotiation of funding to remove projects, let's not get too much ahead of ourselves to put roadblocks. I don't know too much Native Hawaiians that is putting themselves out to do these kind of things for the people. So mahalo for your guys' time. Aloha.
Thanks, Ms. Yuki. Next testifier is Alex Radcliffe. Mr. Radcliffe?
Board, Mr. Nakamoto, I'm Alex Radcliffe. I'm the senior executive for your Navy SEALs stationed here on Oahu. So at my command, I have about 200 people with 60 of those SEALs. For reference, our other hubs in San Diego and Virginia Beach, we have 2,000 to 3,000 folks in each of those locations with about over 1,000 of them SEALs. With that comes the right and appropriate training facilities. We don't have as much out here. We have fewer folks and get less dedicated support. The option when we start looking at how do we right size stuff, we do hire out in town in order to buy down risk. We had the benefit of contracting out Uncle Brian and his team in order to teach us real risk management out in the water, and it's really benefited us. What would benefit us even to a greater extent would be appropriate training facilities, deep water tanks, rock climbing walls, in order to hone our skills before we are practicing that out in town. Military construction projects are inherently challenging and don't have access to the public. Pursuing that would be of no benefit to the residents out here. It's not something that I'd be interested in pursuing. I just want to state my strongest endorsement, not for a 3-month, but for a 6-month extension. Mr. Nakamoto, I believe you mentioned it probably should be able to be negotiated in 2 to 3 months. That sounds like an extremely short time to negotiate right of entry and exclusive negotiating agreements extension. Then I also want to say, out of respect, I don't envy your position as director. So one of my, I've been in the SEAL teams for 18 years. The worst part of my job is adjudicating non-judicial punishments where, folks commit transgressions and you have to adjudicate, and it really affects their livelihoods, their families, their teammates. This is an even greater scale for what you're negotiating. But when I work through those, I try to look at the whole of person and the whole of the situation. You mentioned a few of the other projects, and I don't think they pale in comparison to the quality of good that Hanake Development would do for my team, and then also for the residents of Oahu. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. It's right. Next testifier is Chris. I can't pronounce the last name. Courtois? Courtois. Oh, Courtois. Hi.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
My name is Chris Courtois. I'm the owner operator of a nonprofit on the North Shore called the Adaptive Surfers Academy. I come from a long line of volunteering with Access Surf Hawaii as well, and started my own nonprofit for the advanced training of adaptive and para surfers for the next level of competition surfing. To support the project 100%, we support the project mainly because of access in and out of the water, like the other volunteers from Access Surf Hawaii and director said, it's easier to get in and out with this, not a shore pound. It's safer for the people, creates a safe environment. We focus on bringing people to the water and bringing the people, I live on the North Shore, my training facility and gym is all located at Sunset Beach. So it's a pretty difficult place to put in people with physical challenges. And a wave pool and a wave park in the island would help us drastically. And we, like I said, we support this project 100%, and I want to thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you. Next testifier is Peter Rucci. Sage.
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I didn't know what to expect. I just came here to help to support Mauna Kea, but now watching or listening to your presentation, I'll skip all the pros of this because it's been said over and over, and you well know that it's well supported. I used to fly jets out of Barbers Point, and I hated it when they closed the base. It was just one of the best duty stations ever because the weather is always great. And it's so fun to fly around these beautiful islands. I was disappointed that it got closed. And since then, I've noticed, I go surfing there a lot, at Barbers Point, White Plains, occasionally, actually. But I noticed nothing has gone on. And I know this land is, all it is kiawe trees and halekoa. It's just, to me, I wanted to see something happen, positively when they sold the base to the state. I think this project is outstanding. I know, but since you basically introduced yourself is the purpose of this meeting is to discuss rent and restoration. Restoration, I don't know nothing about. I know about rent. These guys, as Brian well said, these guys are Kama'aina. They're not out to become millionaires. They're not Anheuser-Busch or Microsoft or Amazon and want to come out here and make a $1 million project or $1 million in profits. I would ask that if no one wants this land, and it appears that no one else really has any ideas for it, that the rent stay low and help these guys get this project moving. Because if the rent is high and they have a hard time paying it every month or every year, then they're gonna have to raise prices. If they raise prices, less people will show up. And then now we get into this cycle where they may even not be able to make it. Now you gotta worry about restoration. So I would just plead that you keep the rent as low as you possibly can.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Rucci. Next testifier is Catherine McNeil from G70. Good afternoon, Ms. McNeil.
Good afternoon. Chair, members, staff, executive director, thanks for having me. I'm Catherine McNeil. I go by Katie. I'm a principal at G70 and principal in charge of the work that G70 has done related to this project. So happy here to support Mauna Kea and ask for an extension for the ENA. When we were retained on this project over 2 years ago, I think it is indicative of the commitment that Mauna Kea has brought to the project. Developing on HCDA land requires a significant investment, both time and money. So, we've gone through an EA process. We have an extensive amount of environmental reporting on the project, which in turn adds value to the land. We have obtained will serve letters from utilities impacted. And Mauna Kea has also gone through a visioning and planning of the project to reflect the needs of the community and integrate it into the design of the park in the village. So my concern, as I wrote my testimony, so this is really a summary of the testimony that I submitted, but I wanted to state here today, my concern is that we put roadblocks in for community development if we don't honor the process. And that Mauna Kea has been a good team player in that process. They've come to the table. They've bought our team and the expertise that's behind that to really be part of this and to see it successfully. And then finally, since I get to have one more minute, just express my feeling as a resident of over 20 years in Hawaii. I raised a surfer here. He's a senior at Kahuku High School, and the boys are great. What we're missing are girls, shortboard girls surfers. And I can see that this project would give them the runway to become as excellent as the boys.
Yeah, thank you. Next testifier is Carson Magoon. Carson? Hello, Ms. Magoon.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello, my
Welcome.
name's Carson Magoon.
Hi. Go ahead.
Hi there. I'm a community member in support of this project because I see the value that it can bring to the community. You know, I've a lot of family and friends that participate in sports, Olympic sports, as well as other more alternative sports. But having a facility where athletes can train at a high level for these style of Olympic sports here in Hawaii, it will have ripple effects in the community. It can help bring physical health and mental health to the community in ways that maybe we don't yet see, because, you know, a keiki growing up here, they'll see this clear pathway to get to this stage of competing at a high level. And many of the sports that I'm surrounded by, surfing, running, swimming, I see the level that the top players are competing at, and it's getting so competitive that unless if you have facilities to properly train and prepare for these sorts of sports, it's nearly impossible to compete at the highest level. So this would be an amazing opportunity for kids in Hawaii to have a huge goal to strive for and a way to get there. So I'm here to show my support, and thank you for hearing me out.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
The next testifier is Kiha Piilani.
Hello, Michael.
Good afternoon.
Hello. My name is Kiha Piilani Kalaeloa. I come here in support of the Honokea Surf Village. I come as a kanaka, as a member of this community, and a member of the film community. Very recently, I was blessed to get in touch with Uncle Brian Keolana through his ICANN, or the International Cultural Arts Network. And through that connection, I was allowed to get on my first production as a production assistant on this new show coming out on the North Shore, put on by Warner Brothers. I'm there almost every day and a part of what is called the water unit in this production. And we are very dependent on the surf, the weather, and, you know, being able to have a facility like this to, you know, portray these stories are always calling for big waves, and, you know, not every day we have big waves. So I guess being able to eliminate one of those factors that we depend on so much for the production, as well as this facility just making Hawaii more appealing to productions and other things coming in, and the amount of money that could bring as well. Mahalo for your time.
Thank you.
Aloha.
Next testifier is Mitchell Tainanis. Yeah. Good to see you. Good to see you, Mr. Tainanis.
Chair, board members, Mr. Dynanis, former Kalaeloa board member, current Eva Beach chair. I just came here as a person, as a resident of Eva Beach for the last 50, this year will be 50 years. I offer a different view of, you know, you talk about surfing. I don't surf. Yeah. The reason why is it's not because I don't like, I just don't can. I cannot surf. But the thing about it is what is very intriguing, not intriguing to us, but what I like about this is that Brian and his group came down to our board last year. Not because he had to, Because like what he said, he wanted to engage the community. Being that we're a neighbor community and that's our sister, right up the road. He came out to show us his project. And the only, I think the question that was asked was the water, the water issue with Red Hill, Iroquois, all that. And his team really, brought back to the community and, kind of addressed that issue really well. Another point was, it's a gathering place. In our area, we don't have any more pools. So we're looking at this project, that's the next swimming pool. That's our one pool that we're looking at. But that's a plus for us. Another thing is that we don't have places in our community to gather for graduations, birthdays, weddings, and so forth. We have to go Waikiki, Ala Moana, and stuff like that. So keeping it closer to our community is relevant to us. He did not ask our board for any support or against, but if he had at that time, I would probably say our board is in full support of it. For me, I am in full support for this project. If you wanted to look a good example of a project kind of similar to this, that just opened up is the Vaikai, the wave pool that just opened up. There was there's a handful of people against the project. Now I would say 90% of them go to the Vaikai and use the facilities. And it's now kind of like a major gathering place for our community.
30 seconds.
Okay. Other than that, I don't have anything else.
Thank you again.
Mr. Board.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next testifier is Billy Roll. Good afternoon, Ms. Roll.
Good afternoon. My name is Billy Roll. I'm actually a published marine biologist and member of the film community. I'm a stunt diver. One of the big benefits of this kind of facility is that you can train all of our water researchers. One thing we run into when we're surveying reefs or when we're surveying even shipwrecks are hazardous conditions. So we have a ton of programs at the university that are training rescue and safety divers. Having this facility to do real world practice, not just theoretical or in a flat still pool, would greatly increase diver safety. We do lose quite a few divers and rebreather divers each year to different ocean related accidents. The other thing I can speak to is restoration. With restoration and talking about having to remove these well water lines or a larger pool facility, as a marine biologist, we struggle to find anywhere that has well water lines. So I don't think there would be any lack of a market for someone that needed a water injection. We've lost multiple projects across the state, like Waterkeeper Foundation's oyster rearing project, because we did not have a facility that could accommodate it. So I don't think that necessarily focusing on restoration and having a point that there wouldn't be buyers or someone who would come in is as critical as you might think, because there are major gaps in the research community and access to water and having controlled water settings. We've even done experimental like dolphin energetics where we track how much they leap in order to save baby spinner dolphins. And you could conduct those studies in a wave pool like that. So I've got, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Roll. Next testifier is Ted Peck. Mr. Peck.
Sit here?
Yes, yes. Welcome.
Aloha.
Hello.
As a former division administrator for the State Energy Office, hi, Alice, Mark. With experience in public boards and with over 30 years experience with public projects and with energy, I can't recall a project that I've seen with more diligence on the public benefit, the community outreach, and sustainability. I think that Honokea has done a great job in those areas. I'm a user of Kalaeloa. My wife and I go often and support US vets and work with those in that transitional housing. And I have anguish at the state of repair for Kalaeloa. I know that HCDA has done great amount of work to take this property and make it something that's really great for the citizens of Hawaii and for the people in that area, and I know that it's a hard thing. I think this project is exactly the kind of project that's gonna move that area forward and really reduce risk. I understand where the executive director is coming from in wanting to manage risk for the agency, but I would just, gently say you're not gonna be able to eliminate risk. I will say on projects that I've done as solar, with solar development, with owners that wanted to ameliorate risk, there is a way to build a way to build up that fund so that at the end of the term, there's money there available. But I think that you're going to have to accept a degree of risk that they basically go under right at the beginning. Very low probability, but non-zero, and the nature of development has risk.
1 minute.
And I would finish with just a broad comment. We in Hawaii have a long track record of hostility to equity, looking to improve our community, often without intent, but hostility nonetheless. And I hope that this project won't be added to that list. Thank you for the opportunity to share.
Thank you, Mr. Peck. That's the last testifier. Eva Heller, is Heller gonna testify?
No.
No, okay, sorry. Is there, so that's the last that have signed up for here. Are there any online testifiers? Okay, seeing none.
Oh, wait, there's one.
Sorry. Oh, Karen Polk, okay. I misspoke.
I think I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes, can you
Okay.
state for
Let me see.
for the
Yes, Kieran Polk, Executive Director of the Kapolei Chamber of Commerce. I'm trying to get my camera on, forgive me. I am not sure.
Audio for online.
It's audio.
Sorry, it's audio only.
It's only audio. Okay, that makes sense then. Yes, aloha, Chair and members of the authority. Thank you for listening to all of our concerns today and support. I'm speaking on behalf of the Kapolei Chamber of Commerce, and I have submitted testimony. Just want to point out a few items in particular that kind of align with what's been shared so far. We are really at a need for something like this in Kalaeloa, just to push forward on economic development. There's over 200 jobs that will result out of Honokea coming to fruition, and just some amazing opportunities for economic growth for our region. We are the fastest growing region in the state, and we're looking for jobs opportunity for our families. I applaud Brian Kelowna and the team at Honokea for what they're putting forward. And I also think this is going to be a huge step forward for Barbers Point, Kalaeloa, and the region, the district itself, just to get things moving forward. So we stand in support of with our testimony that we submitted for this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Polk.
Thank you.
Next testifier online, Chair, is Tesha Malama.
Aloha members,
Miss-
can you hear me?
Can hear you?
Yes.
Okay. Tesha Malama, longtime Ever Beach resident, and my comments are basically to the authority members in regards to the comparables that was put forth by Colliers. The premise for negotiations right now is based off of those 4 projects. And therefore, number one, the need to be able to set aside monies is a good thing in regards to needing to move at the point where you may need to take down the project. We've done that with Aloha Solar Energy. And so there is value to prepare for the need for removal. I agree with that. Number 2, the base rent. We do need a base rent. What my concern is the amounts that is being set forth for the board to consider is not, commensurate with the projects within the Kalaeloa district. So I strongly recommend to the board members to relook at those numbers. If you're not involved at the authority level, the need for putting together a permitted interaction group, I highly recommend that. So you can work with the staff to come up with numbers that will make this project successful. And to be perfectly honest, the zoning for that particular area is also considered recreational, so it's consistent. And the comparables have nothing to do with recreational zoning. It's all resort mixed use with the TOD overlay. And so I recommend to consider that, get involved with the staff because the premise for negotiations in regards to the lease are based off of these numbers that are not consistent with the district. And so I would like to strongly ask the board to get involved with the staff and get these negotiations tied up. And if you need to extend it, I think a six-month extension would be more advantageous to the board itself. Mahalo.
Thank you, Ms. Milano. Any other testifiers online? Seeing none, Chair.
Okay, none. So with that, members, are there any questions or comments before we start looking at a motion?
Member Paul might have.
Any questions?
Member Paul?
Oops, well, yeah, no, testimony was great, and I think all the discussion so far, I learned mostly. If I had a comment, it would, to me, I would love for us to work a lot harder at trying to spread the affordability of the risk, and have a more balanced, risk factor between the public sector and the private sector. That's kind of what I'm looking for. So hopefully, if we do approve, an extension that sometime during that 6-month period, it can be worked out so that we come out of this with a balanced risk factor. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Paul.
Member Higo with a motion, if there's no other discussion.
Chair, I did have a question.
There's a question, Member Strikes.
Could we call the project team up? Can we call the project team up? Oh, okay.
For the KS team?
Yeah, I just had a question for you. So, we heard a lot of positive feedback from all the testifiers, mentioning things that, that this project, I guess, would afford to the community, including, the cultural aspects with surfing and the community around that, as well as like possibly being used for lifeguard training, filming, Navy use, and then just all the, the disability access that could provide. Is that accurate? That would be like intended?
Yeah, it's at the heart of the project.
Okay.
Kino or anyone else from the team would verify or vouch for that, but yes.
Okay, and then kind of a follow-up, like how accessible those uses might be to the community. Could you provide, just for my background, a little bit more of the structure of like accessibility to the facilities themselves? Like how is it? I mean, it's not like a nonprofit, right? But
No, it's not. I know Kino might be best, or John, or, yeah.
I can just summarize physically, Steve Ewan, Unakea partner. As was mentioned, the development's about 19 acres, primarily focused on training and recreation. I think our vision incorporates an arrival sequence that has a component of a community element that is open and free at all times to the public to kind of develop a community or third place on the arrival sequence. So we have large arrival parking area. People can bike and walk if they choose. But basically, everybody's talking about the large body of water that is the surf lagoon and then additional, these other training areas. They're all invisible, in good visibility and proximity to what we have. You might call it overlook. So that's open and free to the public to come. There are some elements there, recreational outfitting, refreshments. After that, there is a restriction to pay to get into the park. So for the majority of the recreational areas, that's how we are proposing it currently.
Okay, thank you.
And we do have, there's renderings, there's other information that we'd be happy to provide, if that would be helpful.
Thank you. Any other questions? If not, I think, we've heard different options. I know the motion could either be to let it lapse, extend. I heard 3 months, I've heard 6 months. I've also heard, putting together potentially a permitted action group, integrated group with PIG. So I guess, Vice Chair Spiegel, you said you had a motion that you wanted to, propose?
Yep. And I've also typed it in the chat. Member Higa, I motion to authorize the executive director to extend the exclusive negotiations agreement and right of entry agreement with HK Management dated March 15th, 2021 regarding the Honokea Surf Villages project for an additional 6 months.
Member Apo seconds the motion.
Okay, there's been, is there a? All right, so there's a motion by member Vice Chair Higa and seconded by Secretary Pohl for the board to authorize the executive director to extend the exclusive negotiations agreement and right of entry agreement dated March 15, 2021 with HK Management LLC for an additional 6-month period regarding the Honokea Surf Villages project proposed to be located on an approximately 19.4 acre parcel located in Kalaeloa Community Development District at tax map key number 9-1-013068 on account of the inability of Hawaii Community Development Authority and HK Management and its principals to agree on the essential terms of the ground lease. Do I have any comments or questions, or we can go to vote?
So just for clarity, then, if we want to extend it beyond 6 months, we have to come back to.
We'll have to come back to the board. Okay. Member Higa, you have a question?
Yeah, this is just a bat signal to Senator Glenn Wakai. Wherever you are, Senator, maybe there's a way that the state with its resources can help this project, given its contributions to economic development, but also to athletics in the state. So bat signal to Senator Glenn Wakai to see if there's anything he can do to assist in making sure that this project pencils out. And that's all the comments I have.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, Garrett, can you take a roll call on the vote?
On the motion made and seconded, member Vice Chair Higa,
Yes.
Secretary Pohl,
Yes.
member Miranda Johnson,
Yes.
member Strix,
Yes.
member Evans,
She had to leave. She had to be excused.
member Anderson,
Yes.
member Ray's excused, and Chair Ishii.
Yes.
Motion passes 6 yeses.
And the motion passes. Thank you, everyone. Next agenda item, presentation by HCDA staff on the Kalaeloa Community Development District Electrical Survey for the handover of the existing electrical grid from Naval Facilities Engineering Systems Command NAVAC Hawaii to the Hawaiian Electric or HECO. Mr. Mark Pakota, Director of Capital Improvement Projects, will now provide the board with an update.
Go ahead.
Yep, go ahead.
Good afternoon, board. My name is Mark Pakota, Director of Capital Improvements, HCDA. I'll be updating you on the status of the eco survey that's being taken place in Kalaeloa. And the Bureau.
Yeah.
ECO is currently contracted by the Navy, Naval Facilities Engineering Systems Command, NAVFAC Hawaii, to conduct a survey of existing electrical facilities in Kalaeloa. This includes light poles, substations, all above ground electrical facilities. This is part of a larger effort by the Navy to survey, estimate, and hand over the existing grid. Thank you, everybody. The Hawaiian Electric Company. Currently, TECO has contracted power engineers to conduct various survey methods, including LiDAR, through drones, and through other traditional survey methods. And I think that's all I have. The rest of the details are in the staff report. If there are any questions?
Thanks, Mark. Members, are there any questions for Director of Capital Improvement Projects, Mark Okota? Any public testimony? No public testimony. Thank you, Mark. The last thing on the agenda is the report of the Executive Director, monthly report and other status reports.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. In the interest of time, I'm just gonna kind of stand on the written report. It contains a kind of a report from Kalaeloa Heritage Foundation on Kalaeloa Heritage Park. Thank you.
Is there any questions on the Executive Director's report that was submitted earlier? If not, thank you for those who have joined us on Zoom or in person. This concludes our business for today. And the meeting is now adjourned and the time is 12:52. Thank you.
Thank you, member.